So I'm going to come in, I'm going to right to left, and I'm going to deliver to that right hock. Okay, that's setting a basic trap right there, and hopefully you can see it. Hi, this is Brian Whitaker with BKW Horsemanship at Whitts Ranch, discussing our comprehensive video series on roping. Today we're talking about heeling, and we've talked about a little bit of the swing, your position. Now we're talking about more in depth about the swing and your delivery. So I'm in position here for heeling. Now again, I'm going to go right to left as I'm swinging. So if I turn that around, right to left and not forward and back. Okay, and we're going to be exaggerating that today because it's so different than forward and back. That doesn't mean I'm reaching way out all the time, but it's a helpful thing to go right to left. So I'll just demonstrate that in position for now. Right, left, right, left. And the knuckles are still somewhat to the sky, but when I come, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to right to left, and I'm going to deliver to that right hock. Okay, that's setting a basic trap right there, and hopefully you can see it's pretty balanced looped. I got the same amount of loop on the right as my left. It could maybe the top strand could be sitting up a little more, but there's times in a branding situation where maybe I don't want to catch above the hocks. But as I'm horseback too, my left hand will be higher. So that's a basic trap that I'm going to set. I'd allow the animal to either walk or trot or hop into it and pull my slack. But for now, in this series, in this video, we'll just talk about position, swing, delivery. I think it's important to note I am using a heeling rope. This particular one happens to be a 4-strand. It's a 35-foot rope, which in the team roping heeling ropes, pretty standard 35. And this particular one is a medium soft. I've liked softer ropes. Felt like a medium rope in a certain brand and a medium in another, or even their different styles, or even a 4-strand to a 3. So don't always go by your tag. Go by feel, and quite honestly, one day to the next, I might have just a different. Maybe my arm's tired. Maybe it's windy, and maybe I need a stiffer rope to keep it open, or maybe it's hot, or a lot of things. So use your best judgment. If your instinct feels like this feels different today, try having some different ropes in your bag. Over time you might want to experiment with different brands, different lays, different styles, ranch ropes, what have you. So don't be afraid to try different things. And like I said, for today, that's what I'm using here. So I'm in position. My horse's head would be right here, just off to the left, so that I can clearly see. Here's the important thing. So that I clearly can see both hind legs, especially the hock on both hind legs. I used to barely focus on the right leg, and that's all fine, but we need to catch the right and the left. And so I, would get into slumps of only catching the right, and I think maybe my position was just a little off, so I couldn't see the left to extend my delivery to the left. So make sure you can see both feet. Now that won't really apply on the ground, but when you get horseback, you need to see both hocks. And deliver. Now you can see my bottom strand and this dummy came underneath, and he's already caught, which is fine. This is designed, you can see hopefully, I don't know if you can see the flaps, the rubber flaps on the hind, to keep you from kind of, well, I don't want to say cheating, but you can kind of cheat. Here's a way that you can sort of cheat this, where sawhorses you can't. So you could kind of come in at a sidearm, just to give you a quick understanding of why they do this. For one thing, you sort of could come at a sidearm and see I could scoop both those hind feet. Well, if their feet are really truly on the ground, you won't be able to do that, and your loop will look almost like that right there. Okay, that's also from hitting the front leg. Very humbling. This healing, very, very humbling. I love healing, but it's very humbling. And because if your timing's off, and even if your swing's great, your position's great, and everything's great, but if your timing's a little bit off, it won't work at all a lot of times. So that's where a sawhorse can be nice. But there's times where you maybe want the hind legs up just a little bit if you're trying to sort of understand what that bottom strand needs to do, instead of always kind of setting that in the trap in front. But for now, we'll just do this and work with what we have here. And like I said, an inexpensive sawhorse that that you can make or find works wonderful for healing. But this is good too. So right to left, you can see that now there's a little bit of habit you saw there. I hit the hind quarters here because I still have some habits of wanting to be in the position when I'm roping on a horse, which is right up here. Okay, but see how high I am, my arm, and then I have to come way down here, and that's a strange angle. I want to mimic the angle I'm at when I'm on a horse, which is here, and then unlike on a horse, you'll be the opposite. In fact, I'll step into this just a bit. I'm not saying I'm stepping into the throw, because when I'm healing horseback, I've mentioned I really like to feel like my horse is starting to get on their hindquarters, because the cue is as I deliver, I start to sit, and the animal's just moving away from me so that I can completely allow my tip to go all the way through, if you will, follow through. But to be more specific, I want my tip to come past and set on the left, around the left leg, to set evenly so it stands up nice to set that trap. If I'm uneven, the trap can kind of fall down. They can hop right over it, or I might just hit a right or rope a right leg. Now, in the jackpot and rodeo world, if I do catch a hind leg, it's legal, but it's an added 5-second penalty. So if you have a 4 or 5 head, maybe a lower numbered roping, you might be just fine with that. And so you still take it. I know in branding situations, I think on smaller calves, they still will go with one leg. So it's not, it's still value to catch one leg, but we're always trying to catch two. And especially if you're struggling just with, like I have, just catching the one, make sure your position's right. You can see both hind. I used to really focus on that right, but see both. And I've studied a lot of different theories on where folks like to look for the target for healing. Some say they look at the claws, the feet. That's a tough one for me, because if you're in longer grass, or if it's dusty, or if they're moving really fast, that's a big range of motion, where the hawk, even when they're moving fast, it doesn't move quite as much as the leg might move. But again, we're talking about a peripheral thing. I can see both. You can hear, and we'll show this as this dummy goes. This dummy, the hindquarters goes up and down. That's another indicator. Sometimes it's really dusty and the steer's dragging, he's bracing against, and they'll bury almost up to their hocks. But you can, if you can see the hind, the butt, go up and down. When he's up, his feet are back. When he's down, his feet are forward. We don't want to throw when the feet are forward, because we'll hit a front leg, or it's going to take a whole jump for him to come back in our loop, and chances are they'll kick it out. So that's another thing to look at. The head bob a little bit, but I don't think that's enough to even talk about much now. It's more that hindquarters will drop and come up. When you come up, the legs are back. So something else to look at. I'll throw again. And I'm just always going for the basic trap. I've heard a lot of theories on where you want your bottom strand. Some people like their bottom strand. Now again, when I'm referring to the bottom strand, that's the heel part of my hand. That's this strand right here. My heel controls that. They sort of want that bottom strand. Now you can see this is more of a maybe a 60-40, 60% of my loop, or roughly in there, is over here, 40%'s on the left. If the steer is hopping this narrow, I should be okay. But again, we talked about if they're wide, they might kick that other side out. So it's something, as I've stated before, study your rope. The rope never lies. The rope tells the story. And so what that says, again, a little bit short the same way. What that's telling me is I'm not allowing that tip to quite get through before I deliver. That could be one thing. Or I'm setting him and letting go a little early here. You can see right here is where my hand was. Okay. So right down here is where I let go instead of more forward. So I can study that. And I'll show you the catching exercise on this in another video, which will help that. But for now, I'll show you, I'll demonstrate. I'm going to go to my checklist again, adjust these. Okay, I still have 4 coils. I have a bigger loop because then if I'm heading generally or calf rope, because I need to get that loop. Now that's a little better. Now maybe I overcompensated with the tip through, didn't quite set down the brakes or the bottom part of my hand here when I delivered, and so it's kicked on through. And sometimes you'll just catch the left leg, which is still one hind. It's still a 5-second penalty, or in a ranching world you can still go with the one. Some paces maybe not. You'd have to check with them. I'm not real familiar with that, to be quite honest. I know in the roping rodeo world, team roping world, a hind leg is a hind leg, but if you catch call it the inside leg, it's probably a different reason why than if you're catching the outside leg, and we'll discuss that as we go further. And this is one where my tip went through it and set my brakes, and you see how the rope has a little different look. Chances are it'd still catch 2, but I'm trying to go for a nice upright, standing upright, even shot. Now I'm going to demonstrate from behind, a little different angle to give a little different perspective. Position, right to left, delivery. Okay, and I'm happy with that loop. It's just since the hind feet at this angle are so high off the ground, that's what it's going to do, is kind of help push that through. Right to left, turning my hand over in front of my face. I'm real happy with that one. And that's the action I'll get when the hind feet are off the ground a little bit. It's just another way of practicing, of watching what happens. And again, I'll definitely practice with the hind feet touching the ground, but we happen to be in a little dip there, and that's okay. Try and set a little trap there. You can see I'm off a little bit. I'd like my tip through a little, but hopefully you can see just a different angle of right to left, left, right to left, shaking hands. Shot. So that's a introduction to your swing, your position on a dummy, and how it's different, and we'll see that once we get horseback, and your delivery on heeling. Thank you.